Hi everyone, I'm Zach and I like movies, and it's time for another entry in the Letterboxd Criterion Challenge for 2024. And today's prompt is number 28, which was to pick from Ari Aster's Criterion Closet Picks. And I went with Mr. Klein, also known as Monsieur Klein. And I felt the need to watch this now due to the passing of the film's star, an icon of French cinema of the 20th century. That is Mr. Alain Delon. Not only one of the most beautiful leading men to ever grace the silver screen, but he knew how to lean into that beauty to play some of the most dazzling melancholic performances of all time. He was the coolest sad boy of French cinema. And influential too. Like, you can draw a straight line from his steely-eyed looks and beautiful muted steely-eyed performance in Le Samurai, like drawing a straight line all the way from there to The Driver by Walter Hill, or up to Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive with Ryan Gosling, to Baby Driver, and even beyond. Just there's so much about Delon's style and his persona and his sex appeal that really it's no hard to see why he was so beloved as an actor. Kind of shame about everything else about the man, because even if you just skim his Wikipedia page, gives you plenty of good reason not to miss him. As far as problematic faves go, he was definitely my prettiest. So to pay tribute to that fave, aside from rewatching Le Samurai for the 100th time, I decided to give the go-ahead and rewatch what I would consider one of his best movies and one of his best performances, Mr. Klein. And so this is a film that was directed by Joseph Losey, who I'm not entirely familiar with. This was my first film from him, and I'm definitely impressed by what I saw, because this movie is absolutely full of fascinating camera movements and fascinating setups, and paid off in such an interesting, cold way. So this is a film about. It's set in 1942, and it is, right from the opening scene, we get a very, very grim setup of where this is, because this is set in occupied France in 1942, and the opening scene shows this doctor examining this nude middle-aged woman. It's very cold, it's very clinical, and she's not here for a checkup. She's being tested for her Jewish features. Real uncomfortable, real phrenology stuff. Like measuring the width of her nose. He's like digging into her mouth and checking her gums or teeth, scanning her skin. And it's making note and makes notes of more or less Jewish expression, non-Jewish body language during examination. And when she leaves the doctor's office, they see the exam room. The hallway outside is just full of more people that are just waiting to be tested. So we're in. It gives you the impression. So it gives you immediately a very looming sense of doom and looming sense of dread. But then we meet Delon as Robert Klein. He is a well-off art dealer who lives in a very luxurious apartment flat. He has these gorgeous silk robes and all that. But he's an art dealer who buys paintings from Jewish clients who are desperate to find some kind of money to flee the country, given Nazi occupation. It's not good. Delon here, my God, Klein is such a bastard. He's just seemingly has no morals at all. Has no problem taking advantage of desperate Jews in this situation. But as he's paying off this client of his, he finds that a Jewish newspaper has been delivered to his home. It's addressed to him, but he's not the Robert Klein. He's not Jewish. At least we're not sure he is. At least he claims he isn't. And it turns out that there is a other Robert Klein that's out there, and it's kind of using, and he sort of has a doppelganger, and and that sort of set, and that sort of like mystery of like, oh, there's a second Robert Klein. Why am I sort of being involved here? And it sort of like evolves from this sort of like little like odd mystery into Robert Klein, the Delon Klein, sort of going on this investigation into like where is this other Robert Klein? I need to like sort of clear my name and like find him so I can clear my name. And this mystery, this like journey into this finding this doppelganger becomes this obsession of his, and any kind of lead he finds it just leads to more confusions and more dead ends. It's this, it unfolds further out in what feels very Kafkaesque. I think if you've ever like read or like seen Kafka's The Trial, I think you'll find more than a few similarities here. It's sort of an accused man. A man is accused of something, but like there's suspicions all around, and there's like he keeps searching for answers and searching for just a way out of the situation. But the further he digs, the more he just like sort of digs himself into an early grave. And there's sort of deeper, and the deeper he goes into this maze of like just loose and impossible lead, it just all he's met with is just distrust and indifference, and even just similarities. Like when he goes to the headquarters of this Jewish newspaper that was delivered to him, and he tries to like clear up the confusion. He finds out that the paper is sent to subscribers to provide updates for meetings, decisions, and any other choices made by authorities, and and it's sort of like, and it's sort of he goes to where this other mystery Robert Klein lives, and it's this like kind of a squalor slum apartment, but the landlady there recognizes him. General build, basically looks the same, dresses basically the same, and it's one of those, and it's sort of this. It sort of just keeps on evolving like that. He feels like all eyes are on him, like the walls are closing in, and you really get that sense of that happening with Losey's direction. There's a lot of fascinating, a lot of great camera work here where so many scenes are like, so they have such great creative blocking, not just in like how the camera would basically stay wide and like we're following the actors, and like it'll push in and push back out at any given time, but it really highlights Delon feeling more and more boxed in, and like how some of these how often he will be aimed in the shot within frames, like he'll be shot. Like he'll be standing in a cafe, and like the window on the door or in front of him will like sort of frame him in a square, or as he's like sort of scanning around and like feeling like feeling the suspicion creep up on him, and but the more he searches, the less answers he finds. There's a lot of ambiguity as to whether or not there even was a doppelganger in the first place. And I really love that this consistent motif of reflections. There's a lot of mirror use of mirrors and reflected surfaces, and again like shots through windows. And it sort of suggests like the further it goes on that there is no other Mr. Klein, and that Robert's obsession in finding this mystery Klein is really an investigation into himself. And there's even like scenes where it sort of gives hint to that as Delon's Klein continues in his search, he becomes more like the lines just kind of blur, and it just becomes, there's no two Kleins, there's just one Robert Klein. There is there just is Mr. Klein, and it's sort of like, given how familiar with it's sort of fitting how this great cover image for the I need to talk. Great for the Criterion cover is, there's Mr. Klein here, but everywhere he looks, there's other faces, and even faces around where he sees. But all of these just sort of reflect onto him. There is no other Klein. There just is Mr. Klein. And I think, and it's so fascinating. It's so mysterious, and the atmosphere of it is so mysterious and cold. And really a real bone chiller too, occasionally too. I think if you are a big fan of these kinds of ambiguous mysteries, if you really like an ambiguous movie, you're definitely gonna get a kick out of this. And there's also what's sort of important about just the historical context of this movie that it's set in. It hits a lot on the indifference of the bystander. Klein sort of tries to distance himself, from everything. He sort of sees he's not involved. He's taking advantage of Jews, but he's not involved in any of that. He's living fancily. He's well off. He doesn't need to get involved in anything. But the more he feels, the police looking at him, he feels more. He gets more and more desperate to the more he tries to prove that he is, that he isn't this mystery Klein, that he is, who he says he is, that his family is who he believes he is. There's also, the more, it's that thing of the more innocent you try to prove, the more guilty you look. And there's great moments that really drive home the point of the indifference is really just as damning as about as damning as committing an evil. Robert visits his father, who's his aging father, where he's in the midst of rambling on with his nurse or whatever, and he says the following: indifference is like the calm, untroubled sea around a drowning man, or like a flock of sheep grazing in the ruins of a village, or a worm crawling over a putrid wound. No, a man can be stingy, selfish, hypocritical, anything you like, as long as he is aware. And Robert replies, it amounts to the same thing. It's a real damning. It's real damning moments like that, that he's ever asked, have you ever heard of remorse? And he says, it's like a vulture pierced by an arrow that continues to fly. Just, ugh. And really, and this indifference hits really strong, given the historical context of, it being, Nazi occupied France in 1942, and and given the ending, it's a really chilling ending where Klein is ultimately subject to what was known as the Veldiv Roundup. This was when thousands of Jewish families were arrested by French police and eventually deported into camps, and many went to Auschwitz. It's and there's also scenes that does not hold back on showing that showing the anti-Semitism of France at the time. And it's sort of again, given it was made in 1976, it's definitely an indictment of French at the time it was made. Klein goes on a date to some theater show that features this sort of cabaret performance that clearly shows this mockish Jewish stereotype. And so I'm going to do what they should have done. I'm going to leave before you throw me out, to the raucous cheers and applause. It's a bone chilling. It doesn't pull its punches at all in the politics at the time, and then really just sort of damning damning France for what it did. Sure it was there's an argument to be made it was occupied by the Germans, but they still did it. They still were a part of this. And back to that indifference. Just because you don't want to be involved, that's your choice to. That is your choice to not be involved. You're just not. It's not. It's not a neutral state. It's not a state of neutrality. And man, yeah, it's a real bone chilling film. I think it's and it's I would say it's a bit of a disorienting film at times because again it is a mystery mystery of just like continually like trying to navigate this maze of identity and trying to prove your innocence, but it keeps becoming more it's at times intentionally contradictory and at times intentionally made to disorient in like how the plot and where the plot goes in places because again there's a lot of false leads that he just like gets a lot of just indifference of like oh. But yeah, I think this is I have to shout out Alain Delon here. He's amazing here. It's obviously not terribly different from what he usually does in movies like Le Cercle Rouge or again Le Samurai. There's at least a non-zero amount of his Jeff Costello in here, given like his what he wears and his hat even. But there's clear. But the way that like. It's sort of like finding the subtleties of when Delon, of when that like beautiful, that like sort of still the image of his face when things finally start to like really like bear down on him, and it's a great performance. The way he just like carries. I love the moments where he's like just like darting around like as the paranoia is getting to him. And sort of like seeing him gradually and he come undone as he's like still trying to maintain his typical steely facade. It's great stuff. I definitely get a kick out of movies like this. I definitely have to watch more Joseph Losey movies. I know there's at least one or two movies in the Criterion in the collection. I think one's called The Servant, which was a Harold Pinter collaboration. Sounds great. And yeah, I have to. Yeah, definitely have to tip my hat to here. I definitely have to tip my hat to a lot of the art direction in here too. There's a lot of great the way that like a lot of the scenery is played out. A lot of how the camera movement is so effectively gives I can't talk. The way the camera move like just doubles down on Klein feeling more boxed in and more like everything. Well, like everyone's out again. There's a great scene, in fact, of Delon's Klein visiting a family, I think, where it's all from a point of POV shot, and he enters this like lavish room where like where everyone is like at this party and all eyes are on him, and that it's so creepy because everyone's just staring at him, even the kids. You get some like fun creepy kid moment here, and yeah, I definitely recommend this movie. I think it's wonderfully made. I think it's creepy. I think it's eerie, and it's it's a really cold movie too. So I don't think this will be for everyone, but if you get a kick out of it, especially like given how ambiguous it all is. But I think if you like ambiguity in your movies and in your mysteries, I definitely have to recommend Mr. Klein. It's again, and like I showed, it's available physically for Criterion, and it's currently streaming on Criterion, the Criterion channel, with a special starring Alain Delon on little category for them, and it's can't say much more than that. I think it's great, and definitely recommend, and I think that'll do it. And yeah, Mr. Klein, great movie, and yeah, I'm Zach. I like movies and have a lot more movies to watch. I'll definitely be getting back into my Cassavetes box, but yeah, I hope you watch Mr. Klein, and I hope you I hope you also enjoy Alain Delon's movies. That's probably the best you can enjoy about him. And I hope you watch movies, and I will see you all later.